Myanmar seemingly changing at breakneck speed. If sanctions are removed, expect a flood of investors into the market. One company is already there, and that is Yoma Strategic Holdings. The property developer's shares have risen sevenfold in the past year on expectations that a successful election in Myanmar would broaden its appeal. Well, you can get more on Yoma Strategy with its chief executive and executive director, Andrew Rickards, in Singapore. Thank you very much indeed for joining us there, Andrew Rickards. First of all, you've been there for a while, and these elections, are they the game changer everybody says they are?
I think they're very important indeed. I think we have to remember only 18 months ago what happened yesterday would have been almost unthinkable. The fact that the lady Aung San Suu Kyi ran for office, she's been appointed to Parliament, and the fact that it would appear that her party have won an extraordinary number of seats. I heard you earlier saying 65%. I just come off the phone from Myanmar, and it looks like it could be over 40, so perhaps even 42 out of the 44 that they were contesting.
Let's take a look then at what all this does. It does, of course, open up the country possibly when sanctions are lifted, and people are saying when rather than if, for all sorts of foreign investment. You're already there. What have you seen, and where do you see the opportunities?
Well, I think there are huge opportunities in Myanmar. It's a country which, as you will know and your listeners will know, was one of the leading countries in the region just 40 or 50 years ago. And it was that for a reason. It's got massive natural resources. It's got a geographic location sitting between India and China. It's just had no investment at all for most of the last 50 years. So almost any industry you think of is likely to benefit from an inflow of investment. More specifically, I think the agricultural sector will yet again be very important. It will become an exporter of food to the region. I think an area that we're very active in, which is property. Typically when these economies emerge, property does well, and it does well first. Then I think the whole gambit of consumer, anything that consumer durable they haven't been able to get their hands on to date. I think any of the consumer companies will be looking to get into the country. And so it goes on. Infrastructure, telecommunications, and so on.
Well, talk to me a little bit about how, if you're a retail investor, how you would actually try and ride the back of this wave.
Well, I think to date there are only limited opportunities. Of course, Yoma Strategic is listed in Singapore, and it has the bulk of its business in Myanmar, so certainly that is an offshore listed company that investors can look at. I think a lot of the other investment that comes early is more likely to be government or DFIs, and perhaps more, shall we say, strategic and institutional investors. For the retail market, I think that may still be some time away.
Indeed. So you have to just hold off, but of course the professional investor can get in there and get in there pretty early. But I mean, as you mentioned, it's a whole, nearly every sphere of the economy needs investment right now, and you've been in property. So tell us how you've seen that develop ahead of these elections, and how you see it developing ahead of any sanctions as well and beyond.
Well, Yoma Strategic's been on the ground for about 6 years, but the sister company, the SPA Group, has been operating there for 20 years. The last few years have been rather difficult. I would say the business was flat, but about a year ago, when the political changes started happening, we saw quite a dramatic increase in interest in both our land sales and our property sales, and I think that has continued, and I'm sensing it's going to continue, not least because of what's happened over the weekend. So the increase in price in property, the increase in price of land, we think will continue. There is a massive undersupply of property. And what do most people do when they get a little bit more money in their pocket, to the extent they don't already have property? Just like anywhere else in the world, we expect there to be a lot of first-time buyers in what we would call mid-level priced housing.
I guess everybody, also is fearful. Do they go back to the old days, the bad old days there as well, or is this transition process now unstoppable in your opinion?
In our opinion, and I think shared by many, this process feels almost unstoppable. Everybody in the country, from the poorest of the poor to the richest of the rich, wants the country to be better. The government a year ago, in fact a year ago yesterday, embarked upon this new direction, and I would say that to turn around now they would have 99% of the country up in arms, and that's pretty difficult to face down. So I think it's unstoppable. Everything the government could have done over the course of the last year, they have done. I think there's a key test coming up, how they react to the election results, which have been overwhelmingly in favour of the opposition. 20 years ago, when we had this situation, what happened next wasn't very nice. I think it will be different this time. I think there's a maturity in government which will see them embracing party politics, having two parties in Parliament, two plus more, debating the legislature, and I think we'll see a continued increase in developments from the political to the economic. We've already seen some economic reforms. In fact, today the currency is due to start a managed float, which is something that many of us have been wanting to happen for a very long time. There's been the black market rate and the official rate. Moving to this managed float will bring a lot more stability, and it will mean that everybody's on the same page, which is essentially the market rate. That and many other reforms are currently in process.
Andrew, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Andrew Rickards from Yoma Strategic Holdings.